The Conjuring: Last Rites is directed by Michael Sharves and is the fourth and supposedly final installment in the Conjuring franchise. I have my doubts about how true that actually is. Paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren take on one last terrifying case involving mysterious entities they must confront. It's weird to say, but I've kind of grown up on the Conjuring franchise. The first Conjuring movie is one of the first horror movies I ever saw, and I think to this day it still leaves an impact on me. Then The Conjuring 2 came out in my very early teens, which is a movie I also really like. I think that film probably has the best scene in any Conjuring film. That's the sequence where Patrick Wilson plays on the guitar. I just think that's such a beautiful and moving sequence. Conjuring the Devil Made Me Do It was disappointing to me, and the director of that film, Michael Sharves, returns to direct this one, which admittedly did make me nervous. And at this point there is a slight worry of, are they milking this franchise? So yeah, going into Last Rites, I didn't have the highest of hopes. Now firstly, let's talk about Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga. These two are the heart and soul of this franchise, and at this point I'm just convinced they could play these roles in their sleep. They have amazing chemistry, and you always just want to see these two characters succeed. I also think Mia Tomlinson, who plays Judy Warren, their daughter, and Ben Hardy, who plays Judy's boyfriend, they're both really welcome additions, and they're fantastic in the movie. Now let's go on to the story. When it comes down to everything about the Warrens in this movie, it's great. There's a lot of charm to their storyline, but there's also a lot of heart. There's a really wonderful scene before the opening titles, and it really does establish the heart of this movie. So much of this movie is about Ed and Lorraine trying to protect Judy. You totally feel the reasons why they are so protective of her. So this makes the horror sequences surrounding them effective as well, because you actually care about what's going on and what's at stake. And I really enjoyed the element of Ben Hardy trying to get the parents' approval. Now yes, admittedly this does seem out of place in a Conjuring movie, but for me, what can I say? It was engaging, it hooked me. I also think Michael Sharves does a good job with that tone balance. The film knows when to have those smaller character moments, but it also knows when to lean into the horror. However, the Warrens isn't the only storyline going on. We also have a storyline featuring the Smurl family, and I'll be honest, this element of the film didn't work for me. I just found it never really gave me any reason to care about this family or engage with them, and because the film cuts between the Warrens and the Smurls, every time the Smurls were on screen, I was thinking, can we just get back to the Warrens, please? Or I totally understand this was a real case that Ed and Lorraine Warren dealt with. It just isn't handled well or effectively in the movie. And a lot of the horror sequences surrounding these characters, again, just aren't as interesting. You're not as scared for them because they are just written in such a one-note way. Moving away from the story, let's talk about some other pros and cons. As I mentioned, I wasn't a fan of The Devil Made Me Do It, but one thing I really appreciated about that movie was that the cinematography was great. And that's the same case here, especially the way lighting comes through windows. It's immersive, it can feel creepy, and just generally is visually pleasing to look at. I will say that the third act can get overly ridiculous. Of course, in any movie there's a suspension of disbelief, but as the third act kept going on, the silliness did kind of keep building and building, and a certain thing happened which made it get to a point where I was like, okay, this is too far. Overall, I am a little frustrated with The Conjuring Last Rites, because if it had just focused on the Warrens, then this movie could have been great. But the other stuff really does drag it down. It's nowhere near as good as the first two Conjuring movies, but still, I like it more than the third, and generally, I think it's a satisfying enough conclusion to this franchise. Well, that's what they want us to believe anyway. I'm going to give The Conjuring Last Rites a B-. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. You guys are awesome. Blu-ray Billy, logging off.